Close your eyes and let the sounds of the modern world fade away. Let the hum of electricity and the distant roar of engines dissolve into a different kind of quiet. We are traveling back in time, moving through the mists of history until the air grows heavy with the scent of salt spray, coal smoke, the deep, earthy aroma of a bustling harbor. It is the summer of 1869. You are standing on the edge of the East River, the restless body of water that separates the independent city of Brooklyn from the crowded docks of Manhattan. Imagine you are standing on the Brooklyn side, near the Fulton Ferry slip. The water is a dark, churning green, filled with the constant movement of tugboats, sailing ships, and the heavy, rhythmic splashing of paddle wheelers. The sun is beginning to climb over the rooftops of Brooklyn Heights, casting long, golden shadows across the cobblestone streets. You can hear the rhythmic clop-clop of horse hooves on stone, the shouting of dock workers, and the mournful cry of seagulls circling overhead. This is a world of wood and iron, of steam and sweat. And in the center of this world stands a man who is about to change the horizon forever. His name is John Augustus Roebling. He is 63 years old, a man of stern discipline and iron will. You see him there, dressed in a dark frock coat, his silver hair tucked under a hat, his eyes fixed on the water with a precision that borders on the divine. John is an immigrant from Prussia, a student of the great philosopher Hegel, and a master engineer who has already conquered the suspension bridge. He has spent years dreaming of a bridge that would span this treacherous river, a bridge that would be the longest in the world, a main span of exactly 1,595 feet. To the people of 1869, such a distance seems impossible, almost mythical. But to John, it is a matter of mathematics, of the catenary curve. Of the 14,000 miles of steel wire he intends to weave into massive cables. Beside him, or perhaps in his mind's eye, is his son, Washington Roebling. Washington is a veteran of the Civil War, a man who has seen the worst of human conflict. Has come out the other side with a quiet, steady strength. And behind them both, providing the steady heartbeat of the family, is Washington's wife, Emily Warren Roebling. At this moment, she is waiting at their home at 326 Hicks Street, perhaps looking out toward the river, unaware that her life is about to be redirected by a single, tragic heartbeat of time. The air is warm on this June morning. John is conducting a survey for the bridge's Brooklyn Tower. He is standing on the rack of the Fulton Ferry slip, a wooden pier that juts out into the water. He is so focused on his instruments, so absorbed in the geometry of the future, that the present world seems to blur around the edges. He is calculating the tension, the weight, and the way the stone will meet the riverbed. He does not see the ferry Enon as it approaches the slip. The Enon is a massive vessel, a heavy wooden ghost moving through the morning mist. It glides toward the dock with the momentum of thousands of tons of timber and machinery. You can hear the creak of the wood and the churning of the water as the captain maneuvers the vessel into its narrow berth. There is a sudden, sharp sound, the groan of heavy timber meeting timber. In an instant, the ferry pins John's foot against the pilings of the dock. It is a quiet accident, in a way. There is no explosion, no great cry that rings across the city. There is only the sickening crunch of bone and the sudden, sharp intake of breath. John is pulled back, his foot crushed, his toes mangled by the weight of the boat. The men around him rush to his side, their faces pale with shock. But John, ever the stoic, remains remarkably calm. He allows himself to be carried away, but his mind is still on the bridge. He has lived a life governed by the laws of physics, the strength of materials, and he believes his own body can be mastered with the same discipline. You can imagine the carriage ride back to his son's house on Hicks Street. The jolting of the wheels on the uneven stones must have been agony, yet John sits upright, his jaw set. When the doctors arrive, they find a man who refuses to yield. They tell him the toes must be amputated. He agrees, but he refuses any anesthesia. He watches the procedure with a detached, scientific interest, as if he were observing the repair of a bridge cable rather than the carving of his own flesh. In the days that follow, the house at 326 Hicks Street becomes a place of hushed whispers and the scent of medicinal tinctures. Emily moves through the hallways with a grace that hides her growing anxiety. She is young, only 25, but she possesses an intellect that matches the Roebling men. She cares for her father-in-law, bringing him water, tending to his needs, while Washington balances his duties to the bridge with his duty to his dying father. John Roebling, however, is a man of unconventional beliefs. He rejects the standard medical advice of the day. He believes in the water cure, a form of hydrotherapy that involves pouring cold water over the wound at regular intervals. He believes that nature, guided by his own will heal the damage. But the East River is a dirty place in 1869, and the bacteria of the waterfront have already found their way into his blood. A week passes. Then two. The city of Brooklyn continues its frantic pace outside the windows. The ferry whistles continue to blow, and the dream of the bridge remains on the drawing boards in the study. But inside the house, a shadow is lengthening. The first sign is a subtle stiffness in John's jaw. He finds it difficult to swallow. His muscles begin to tighten, a slow, inexorable tension that no catenary curve can balance. It is tetanus. In the 19th century, it is a death sentence. To the people of that time, it is known as lockjaw, a cruel disease that turns a person's own strength against them. As the days of July heat up, John's condition worsens. The spasms begin, violent, uncontrollable tremors that rack his body. Yet, in the quiet moments between the pain, he still talks of the bridge. He speaks of the $15,500,000 it will cost to build, a staggering sum that represents the faith of two cities. He speaks of the 27 workers who might lose their lives during the construction, a grim prophecy that he himself is the first to fulfill. Emily stays by his side, her hand often resting on his forehead. She listens to his fevered instructions. She begins to learn the language of the bridge, the talk of pneumatic caissons, of granite towers, of the way the steel wires must be galvanized to resist the salt air. She doesn't know it yet, but these bedside vigils are her first lessons in engineering. She is absorbing the soul of the bridge through the words of its dying architect. Washington is devastated. He looks at his father, the man who seemed as indestructible as the suspension cables he invented, and sees him crumbling. The weight of the bridge begins to shift. It is no longer just a project, it is a legacy. It is a debt owed to the man who gave his life for a survey. On July 22, 1869, the end comes. The house on Hicks Street is silent, save for the ticking of a grandfather clock and the distant sound of the river. John Augustus Roebling breathes his last, his body finally finding the peace that his restless mind never sought. He dies before a single stone is laid, before the first shovel of earth is turned for the great towers. He leaves behind a set of plans, a grieving family, and a vacuum that threatens to swallow the entire project. The news of his death ripples through Brooklyn and New York. The newspapers carry the story of the tragic ferry accident and the loss of the great engineer. Many believe the bridge will die with him. Who else has the vision? Who else has the mathematical genius to span the East River? The skeptics, of whom there are many, shake their heads and say the bridge was a fool's errand from the start. They talk of the cost, the impossibility of the task, and the danger of the river. But they do not know Washington Roebling. And more importantly, they do not yet know Emily. Imagine the days following the funeral. The air in the Roebling house is thick with grief, but also with a strange, burgeoning energy. Washington has been named the chief engineer in his father's wake. He is only 32 years old. He has the plans, and he has his father's notes, but he also has a profound sense of isolation. He knows the dangers that lie ahead. He knows that the foundations of the bridge must be sunk deep into the riverbed, into the dark, pressurized world of the caissons where the air is thick. The light is dim. Emily watches her husband. She sees the lines of worry etching themselves into his face. She sees him poring over the blueprints late into the night, his compasses and rulers moving over the paper like silent ghosts. She knows that he cannot do this alone. The bridge is too big, too complex, too demanding for one man to carry, especially a man who is mourning the giant whose shadow he has always lived in. In these quiet, late-night hours, the bond between Washington and Emily begins to transform. They are no longer just husband and wife, they are becoming partners in a grand, dangerous ambition. Emily begins to study. She doesn't just bring him tea, she asks about the stresses on the cables. She asks about the catenary curve, that beautiful, hanging arc that allows a heavy wire to support its own weight and the weight of the world. She learns that the main span of 1,595 feet is not just a number, but a delicate balance of forces. She learns of the 14,000 miles of wire that will be spun back forth across the river, like a giant spider weaving a web of steel. She learns that the final cost of $15,500,000 is a promise made to the taxpayers, a promise that must be kept with every stone, every bolt. She hears the names of the men who will work in the caissons. She feels the weight of the 27 lives that the bridge will eventually claim. But for now, the bridge exists only on paper and in the grieving hearts of the Roeblings. The first chapter of this story is ending in a cemetery, but the second chapter is beginning in a library. The death of John Roebling is not the end of the Brooklyn Bridge, it is the moment of its true, difficult birth. As you drift toward sleep, imagine the bridge as it was then, a ghost of an idea, a set of lines on a blueprint, a dream that cost a man his life. The river still flows, indifferent to the ambitions of men. The ferries still cross, their bells ringing in the fog. But the silence in the house on Hicks Street is about to be replaced by the thunder of construction. Think of Emily Roebling, sitting by the window in the moonlight. She is looking out at the water where the ferry Enon made its fateful turn. She does not yet know that she will spend the next 11 years acting as the bridge's liaison, the surrogate engineer who will carry the project to completion when Washington's own health fails him. She does not know that in 1899, she will graduate from NYU with a law degree, a testament to her unending desire to learn. Lead. She does not know that one day, on May 24, 1883, she will be the first person to cross the completed bridge in a carriage, carrying a white rooster as a symbol of victory. All of that is in the future. For now, there is only the quiet of 1869. The loss of a father. The weight of a legacy. The first few steps of a journey that will take over a decade and change the world. The catenary curve is a perfect metaphor for her life. It is a curve that looks simple, but is held in place by immense tension. It is a curve that finds grace under pressure. As John Roebling's life ended, that curve began to form in the lives of Washington and Emily. The bridge was no longer a matter of Prussian philosophy or engineering ego. It was a matter of love, of survival. Of the quiet, steady strength of a woman who was about to become the bridge's greatest builder. Listen to the rhythm of the river in your mind. The water laps against the wooden pilings of the Fulton ferry slip. The city of Brooklyn is sleeping now, the gaslights flickering in the streets. The blueprints are rolled up on the desk. The ink is dry. The world is waiting for the first stone to be dropped into the water. In the next chapter, we will follow Washington down into the darkness of the riverbed. We will feel the pressure of the caissons and the heat of the compressed air. We will see the towers begin to rise, stone by heavy stone, reaching toward the sky. And we will see Emily begin her long, silent watch, becoming the voice for the man who could no longer speak. The eyes for the man who could no longer see the work. But tonight, we remember John. We remember the cost of a vision. We remember the 1,595 feet of space that was once an impossible void, and the man who looked at that void and saw a path. We remember the $15,500,000 that bought a new era. And we remember the quiet house at 326 Hicks Street, where a young woman sat in the shadows, her mind beginning to grasp the mathematics of a dream. The bridge is a beautiful thing, isn't it? Even in its earliest, most tragic days, it was a testament to the human spirit. It tells us that even when we fall, the work continues. Even when the architect is gone, the architecture remains. The cables are waiting to be spun. The wire is waiting to be stretched. The river is waiting to be crossed. Rest now, knowing that the bridge is in good hands. The story is only just beginning. The moon is high over the East River, and the water is calm. The sounds of 1869 are fading into the soft stillness of your room. Sleep deeply, and dream of steel and stone, of curves and light, and of the silent architect who is waiting for her moment to shine. The ferry has docked. The day is done. The legacy is passed from father to son, and from husband to wife. The bridge is a promise, and that promise will be kept. Good night, and sleep well. The towers are rising in the mist. The 14,000 miles of wire are calling. The white rooster is waiting for the dawn. And the catenary curve, that perfect, graceful arc, is holding everything together, just as it was always meant to do. In the quiet of the night, you can almost hear the wind whistling through the cables that haven't been built yet, a song of progress, a song of endurance. A song of the woman who would not let the dream die. It is 1869, and the world is about to change. But for now, there is only the river, the moon. The quiet memory of John Roebling, the man who gave everything so that we might walk across the water. The story continues tomorrow, but tonight, the river is at peace. The city is still. The bridge is a dream that is slowly, surely, becoming real. And you are a part of that dream, resting in the safety of history, as the mists of the East River wrap around you like a warm, familiar blanket. Sleep now. The bridge will be there when you wake. Imagine you are standing on the edge of the East River in the year 1870. The sun is dipping low over the skyline of New York, casting a long, amber glow across the water. The air is thick with the scent of salt spray, coal smoke from passing ferries, and the damp, earthy aroma of the riverbanks. You can hear the rhythmic slapping of the tide against the wooden piers, a sound as old as the city itself. But today, there is a new sound, a deep, rhythmic thrumming that seems to vibrate in your very bones. This is the heartbeat of a giant being born. You are standing at the threshold of a miracle, witnessed through the eyes of a woman whose name history will whisper for centuries to come. This is the story of Emily Roebling, and the dark, pressurized world of the caissons, the places the workmen called the hell holes. To understand the bridge, you must first understand the depth of the challenge. The East River is not a river at all, but a turbulent tidal strait, a churning body of water that resists being tamed. To hold up the massive weight of a bridge that would eventually span 1,595 feet, the longest main span the world had ever dared to imagine, the towers had to be anchored into the very bedrock of the earth, far beneath the shifting mud of the riverbed. To do this, the Roeblings used caissons. Imagine, if you will, a massive wooden box, as large as a half-block of houses, turned upside down and lowered into the water. These boxes were built of enormous yellow pine timbers, 12 feet thick at the roof, designed to be heavy enough to sink. Strong enough to hold back the weight of the entire river. Close your eyes and imagine you are descending into one of these caissons. You step into an iron airlock, a small, cramped chamber where the air is thick and smells of oil and wet wool. The door clangs shut behind you with a heavy, final sound. Then, you hear the hiss. It is the sound of compressed air being pumped in, a sound that grows into a roar. Your ears begin to throb and pop as the pressure increases, pushing against your drums. It feels as though the world is squeezing you, holding you tight in an invisible grip. When the pressure inside the lock matches the pressure in the chamber below, a trapdoor opens. You descend a narrow iron ladder into the gloom of the river floor. The air down here is strange. It is thick and heavy, like breathing through a warm, damp cloth. Because the air is so dense, your voice sounds thin and tinny, and it is impossible to whistle. The heat is intense, often reaching over 100 degrees, and the humidity makes every surface slick with moisture. In the flickering light of calcium lamps and candles, the workmen look like ghosts. The candles burn with a strange, fierce intensity in the oxygen-rich air, their flames long and dancing, casting deep, distorted shadows against the timbered walls. You hear the constant, muffled thud of the air pumps from the surface, a reminder that your very life depends on the steady flow of air from above. The men in these hell holes are digging. They are digging through sand, through shells, and through massive boulders that have sat undisturbed for millennia. They work with picks. shovels, and sometimes with their bare hands, clearing the way so the massive wooden box can sink deeper and deeper into the earth. It is grueling, terrifying work. The pressure does strange things to the human body. When the men emerge at the end of their shifts, rising too quickly from the depths to the surface, the nitrogen bubbles in their blood expand, causing agonizing pain in their joints. Chest. They call it the bends, or caisson disease. It is a mystery to the doctors of the time, a silent enemy that stalks every man who dares to enter the hell holes. Among those who descend most frequently is Washington Roebling, the chief engineer and Emily's husband. He is a man of duty, a man who believes he cannot ask his workers to face a danger he will not face himself. Day after day, he breathes that heavy, metallic air. Night after night, he emerges exhausted, his body trembling from the strain. Emily watches him with a mixture of pride and growing dread. She sees the lines of fatigue deepening on his face, the way his hands have begun to shake when he holds his morning coffee. She knows the cost of the bridge is being paid in more than just the $15,500,000 that the project will eventually consume. It is being paid in the health and lives of the men she sees trudging toward the ferry docks every dawn. Records will later show that 27 workers died during the construction of the bridge, their lives claimed by accidents, falls. The relentless grip of the caisson disease. Each death is a shadow over the Roebling household, a reminder of the fragility of their dream. But the work must continue. The caissons must reach the rock. Washington spends more time in the depths, fighting fires that break out in the timbered roof, fires that burn invisibly in the pressurized air, eating away at the very foundation of the towers. He stays down for hours, fighting the blazes with water. Desperate hope, and it is during these long, pressurized vigils that his body finally begins to break. In the early 1870s, the inevitable happens. Washington Roebling is stricken with a case of the bends so severe that he is nearly paralyzed. He can no longer walk to the bridge site. He can no longer descend into the hell holes. The man who was the brain of the project is now confined to his home at 326 Hicks Street in Brooklyn Heights. Imagine the quiet of that house, a stark contrast to the roar of the construction site. From his window, Washington can look out over the rooftops and see the towers of his bridge rising like stone giants against the sky. He watches through binoculars, his eyes tracing the movements of the cranes and the men, but he is a prisoner of his own body. He is blind in one eye, his nerves are shattered. He is often in too much pain to even speak to the Board of Trustees. This is the moment when Emily Warren Roebling steps out of the shadows. She is not merely a devoted wife, she is a woman of formidable intellect and iron will. To save her husband's career, to ensure the bridge is finished, she begins a transformation that will make her the silent architect of the century's greatest engineering feat. She begins to study. In the quiet hours of the night, by the light of a single lamp, Emily pores over Washington's engineering manuals. She masters the complexities of stress analysis, the strength of materials, and the intricate mathematics of cable construction. She becomes fascinated by the catenary curve, the mathematical principle that governs the shape of a hanging chain. It is a curve of perfect balance, a marriage of gravity and tension. Emily learns to calculate the exact tension required for the 14,000 miles of steel wire that will eventually be woven into the bridge's great cables. These are not tasks for the faint of heart, they require a precision that leaves no room for error. If the math is wrong, the bridge will fall. If the tension is uneven, the span will buckle. Emily takes these numbers into her mind and her heart, becoming the bridge's liaison and surrogate engineer for the next 11 years. Every day, Emily travels from the quiet sanctuary of 326 Hicks Street to the chaotic, mud-slicked construction site. She carries Washington's instructions to the assistant engineers. She inspects the progress of the towers. She speaks to the contractors and the politicians, her voice calm and authoritative. At first, the men are skeptical. They see a woman in a long skirt and a feathered hat, and they assume she is merely a messenger. But as she speaks, they realize she knows more about the bridge than they do. She understands the way the wind will catch the cables. She understands the chemistry of the mortar and the geology of the riverbed. She becomes the indispensable bridge between the bedridden genius and the physical reality of the rising stone. The sensory world of Emily's daily life is one of sharp contrasts. In the morning, she is in the sick room, where the air smells of liniment and old paper. She holds Washington's hand, translating his whispered instructions into clear, concise diagrams. By afternoon, she is on the river, where the wind whips her hair and the sound of steam whistles fills the air. She stands on the wooden walkways high above the water, looking down at the very river that tried to swallow her husband. She feels the vibration of the machinery, the pulse of the city, and she knows that she is the only thing holding the project together. As the years pass, the towers reach their full height, standing 276 feet above the high-water mark. They are Gothic masterpieces, their pointed arches reaching toward the clouds. But the work is far from over. The cables must be spun. This is a process of infinite patience. A traveling wheel carries a single strand of wire across the river, back and forth, thousands of times. Emily watches as the 14,000 miles of wire are bundled into 4 great cables, each 15 inches thick. She knows the history of every inch of that wire. She knows the cost, the sweat, and the danger. She is there when the first traveler rope is pulled across, and she is there when the final suspender is clamped into place. Throughout these 11 years, Emily's role remains largely unacknowledged by the public. She is the silent architect. The newspapers write about Washington's illness and the genius of his late father, John Roebling, who died before the first stone was laid. But the men on the bridge know the truth. They see her every day. They see her bravery as she walks the narrow footpaths high above the East River, never faltering, never showing fear. She is the one who answers their questions. She is the one who settles their disputes. She is the spirit of the bridge made flesh. The financial weight of the bridge is staggering. The final cost of $15,500,000 is nearly double the original estimate, a figure that causes endless political turmoil. Emily navigates these waters with the same precision she uses for her calculus. She meets with the Board of Trustees, defending Washington's reputation and his salary when they threaten to remove him. She uses her intellect and her charm to keep the skeptics at bay. In another life, she might have been a lawyer, a dream she will eventually realize in 1899, when she graduates from New York University with a law degree, but for now, her courtroom is the bridge. Her client is the future. As the completion of the bridge draws near, the excitement in the city reaches a fever pitch. It is no longer just a construction project, it is a symbol of American resilience and the dawn of a new age. The two cities, Brooklyn and New York, which have always been separated by the treacherous water, are finally about to be joined. Emily feels a sense of quiet victory. She has carried the burden of 2 men's dreams on her shoulders for over a decade, and she has not buckled. She has mastered the catenary curve of her own life, balancing the tension of her public duties with the gravity of her private sorrows. There is a story, perhaps a legend, one rooted in the deep respect the workers had for her, that Emily was the very first person to cross the completed bridge. It was not the official opening yet, but the roadway was set. To test the path and to honor her years of dedication, it is said she drove a carriage across the span. In her lap, she carried a white rooster, a traditional symbol of victory and good luck. Imagine that sight, a lone woman in a carriage, the white feathers of the rooster catching the sunlight, crossing the greatest bridge in the world while the towers she helped build cast long shadows over the water. The wind would have been cold and fresh, the view from the center of the span breathtaking. Behind her lay the years of struggle, the hell holes, and the pain of the sick room. Ahead of her lay the 2 greatest cities in America, finally united. The official opening date is set for May 24, 1883. It is to be a day of unprecedented celebration. President Chester A. Arthur will be there. The streets will be lined with flags, and the river will be crowded with boats of every description. But for Emily, the true celebration happened in the quiet moments of the years before, in the solving of a difficult equation or the successful sinking of a caisson. Her victory is written in the stone. Steel, in the 14,000 miles of wire that hum in the wind like the strings of a giant harp. As you prepare to drift off to sleep, think of the bridge not just as a structure of granite, steel, but as a testament to the quiet strength of a woman who refused to let a dream die. Think of the 27 men who gave their lives to the river. Of Washington Roebling, watching from his window at 326 Hicks Street, seeing his vision brought to life through the hands of the woman he loved. The East River still flows beneath the bridge, dark and powerful, but it no longer divides. The hell holes are gone, filled with concrete. Silent now, buried deep beneath the silt where they will remain for as long as the city stands. The bridge is a miracle of balance. It is held up by the tension of its cables, the weight of its towers, a perfect catenary curve that mimics the grace of a resting ribbon. And it is held up by the story of Emily Roebling, who stepped into the pressurized world of men, emerged as the architect of her own destiny. The city is quiet now, the sound of the 1870s fading into the soft breathing of the night. The flickering calcium lamps have been replaced by the steady glow of electric lights. If you listen closely, you can still hear the hum of the wire. As the moon rises over the East River, casting a silver path across the water, the bridge stands as a silent sentinel. It has survived storms, the weight of millions of footsteps, and the passage of over a century. It cost $15,500,000 and 27 lives, but its value is beyond measure. It is a bridge built on mathematics, on steel, and on a love that was stronger than the pressure of the deep. Emily Roebling, the woman who carried the white rooster across the sky, has left her mark on the horizon forever. Tomorrow, we will explore the day the bridge finally opened, the day the bells of New York, Brooklyn rang out in unison, and the sky was filled with fireworks. We will see the thousands of people who walked the wooden planks for the first time, feeling the bridge sway gently beneath them like a living thing. We will hear the speeches, the music, and we will witness the moment when the silent architect finally saw the world acknowledge the masterpiece she had nurtured for 11 long years. But for now, let the image of the bridge soothe you. It is strong. It is stable. It is a path from one world to another, built with a precision that defies the chaos of the river below. The caissons are silent. The work is done. The towers are asleep in the moonlight, and the cables are singing a soft, low lullaby to the city that sleeps beneath them. Close your eyes and feel the gentle sway of the bridge in the wind, a rhythmic, calming motion that carries you toward sleep. The East River is calm, the tides are turning. The history of the Brooklyn Bridge is folded into the night, waiting for the dawn of a new chapter. Sleep now, with the image of the catenary curve in your mind, a curve of perfect grace, a line that connects the earth to the sky, the past to the present. The story of Emily. Her bridge is a reminder that even in the darkest hell holes, there is light, and even the heaviest burdens can be carried if they are lifted with love and intelligence. The bridge is there, watching over the harbor, a monument to what is possible when we refuse to be defeated by the pressure of the world. Good night. May your dreams be as vast and as beautiful as the span that joins the two cities, stretching out over the water, forever reaching for the other side. In the silence of the night, 326 Hicks Street remains a quiet monument to the patience required to build something that lasts. The 14,000 miles of wire are still there, hidden inside their protective sheaths, holding the weight of the world. The 27 souls are remembered in the strength of the stones. And Emily Roebling's spirit is in every bolt and every beam. The bridge is not just a way to cross a river, it is a way to cross the impossible. As you drift deeper into sleep, remember that the most beautiful things are often built in the dark, under pressure, by those who are willing to learn the language of the stones. The secrets of the curves. The bridge is waiting for you in the morning, a silver thread against the blue. For now, let the night hold you in its steady, peaceful embrace. The city is still. The river is quiet. The bridge is whole. And you are safe, resting in the shadow of a miracle that was once just a dream in the mind of a woman who looked at a river, decided to build a path across the sky. The heartbeat of the city slows, the vibrations of the day fade away, and the air is cool and sweet. The story of the hell holes is over, and the story of the Great Bridge has only just begun. Sleep, and let the quiet strength of Emily's bridge be the foundation of your rest. You are crossing over now, into the world of dreams, where everything is balanced, everything is certain, and the path ahead is clear. The white rooster is a memory, the white wire is a song, and the white moon is a lantern for your journey. The 1595. 5 feet of the main span are but a few steps in the landscape of your sleep. 11 years of work have led to this moment of peace. 27 lives have paved the way for this tranquility. $15.5 million have bought this icon of the American spirit. And one woman's mind has solved the equation of the night. Sleep well, for the bridge is holding firm, and the river is at rest. The chapter is closing, the light is dimming, and the world is at peace. Good night. Imagine you are standing on the edge of the East River. It is a cool evening in the early 1870s, and the sun is beginning to dip behind the jagged skyline of Manhattan. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, the salty tang of the harbor, and the pervasive, metallic smell of wet iron. Around you, the world is moving with a rhythmic, heavy pulse. You hear the distant, rhythmic thud of steam engines and the soft, repetitive lap of the gray water against the timber docks. The Brooklyn you know today is a hum of electricity. Steel, but in 1872, it is a city of gaslight and cobblestones, a place where the future is being forged in the dark mud beneath the riverbed. Close your eyes. Feel the damp mist on your face as we begin this chapter of our story, a moment when the greatest engineering feat in human history nearly came to a silent, tragic end. In the previous chapters, we saw the brilliant but stern John Roebling dream of a bridge that would unite the two cities of New York, Brooklyn. We saw him pass that dream to his son, Washington Roebling, before the first stone was even laid. Now, we find ourselves in the heat of the struggle. The year is 1872. The great stone towers are rising, but the real battle is happening far below the surface, in the crushing silence of the caissons. These are the iron boxes, the massive wooden and steel structures sunk into the riverbed to provide a foundation for the bridge. To work inside them, men must descend into a world of artificial air. Yellow light, where the pressure of the river itself is held back by nothing but the breath of massive steam pumps. Washington Roebling is not a man to lead from a distance. He is there, in the mud, alongside his workers. Imagine him now, his tall frame bent under the low timber ceilings of the caisson. The air inside is thick, hot, and strangely sweet. The candles flicker with a frantic, eerie light because the oxygen is so dense. Every sound is muffled, and voices ring with a high, unnatural pitch. It is a place of immense weight. Above Washington's head are millions of pounds of stone and water, held at bay by the invisible force of compressed air. He spends hours here, day after day, monitoring the excavation, checking the masonry, ensuring that the foundation of his father's dream is as solid as the earth itself. But there is a hidden price for entering this subterranean world. In these early years, the science of medicine has not yet caught up to the ambitions of engineering. The workers speak of a mysterious ailment they call the bends or caisson disease. They notice that after they leave the high-pressure environment of the riverbed, return to the surface, their joints begin to ache with an intensity that defies description. Some find themselves doubled over in pain, a posture the laborers jokingly call the Grecian bend, after a popular fashion silhouette of the time. But the joke is a dark one. Men are falling ill. Some are paralyzed. Records suggest that by the end of the project, 27 workers will have lost their lives to the dangers of the bridge, many of them victims of this silent, invisible pressure. In the summer of 1872, the pressure finally claims the chief engineer. Washington Roebling is working in the New York caisson, overseeing a particularly difficult stretch of excavation. When he finally ascends to the surface, the transition is too rapid. The nitrogen in his blood, compressed by the weight of the river, expands into tiny bubbles, like the fizz in a bottle of open cider. These bubbles lodge in his joints, his muscles, and most devastatingly, his nervous system. The pain is immediate and catastrophic. He is carried home, his body racked with spasms, his vision blurring. Picture the house at 326 Hicks Street in Brooklyn Heights. It is a stately brick residence, quiet and dignified, but inside, the atmosphere is heavy with dread. Washington is moved into a bedroom on the upper floor, a room with a wide window that looks out over the East River. He is only 35 years old, a man in the prime of his life, but suddenly he is a prisoner of his own body. He cannot walk without assistance. He cannot endure the sound of loud voices. His eyes become so sensitive to light that he must often stay in a darkened room, shielded from the very sun that illuminates the bridge he is building. This is where our story shifts, turning from the strength of iron to the strength of the human spirit. For standing at Washington's bedside is his wife, Emily Warren Roebling. Emily is a woman of remarkable poise and a sharp, inquisitive mind. In an era when women are often expected to remain in the background, Emily finds herself thrust into the very center of a storm. She looks at her husband, once so vibrant, strong, and realizes that if the bridge is to be finished, she must become his hands, his feet, and his voice. The task ahead of them is monumental. The bridge is not just a road, it is a mathematical marvel. The main span will be 1,595 feet long, the longest in the world at the time. To hold that weight, they will need 14,000 miles of steel wire, woven into 4 massive cables. The cost is already mounting toward an eventual total of $15,500,000. But more than the money and the materials, the bridge requires a leader. The board of trustees and the public are beginning to whisper. They wonder if a sick man can really finish such a project. They wonder if the bridge is destined to be a half-finished ruin, a monument to the Roebling family's hubris. Emily understands this danger. She knows that if Washington is removed as chief engineer, the project may fall into the hands of corrupt politicians or less capable engineers. And so, a remarkable partnership begins. From his sickbed at 326 Hicks Street, Washington uses a telescope to watch the progress of the towers. He watches the tiny figures of the workers as they move across the masonry. He notes every detail, every delay, and every triumph. And then, he speaks to Emily. At first, she is simply a messenger. She takes his notes to the bridge site and brings back reports from the assistant engineers. But Emily is not content to be a mere conduit. She begins to study. While Washington rests in the quiet of their home, Emily dives into the world of higher mathematics and civil engineering. She learns the complexities of stress analysis, the strength of materials, and the intricate secrets of cable construction. Most importantly, she masters the principle of the catenary curve, the perfect, natural U-shape that a hanging chain forms under its own weight. It is this curve that dictates the tension and the beauty of the bridge's great cables. For the next 11 years, Emily Roebling will act as the bridge's liaison and surrogate engineer. Think of the dedication required to maintain this vigil. For over a decade, she navigates a world of men, engineers, politicians, and laborers, carrying the authority of the chief engineer in her steady hands. She becomes so proficient in the technical language of the project that many begin to suspect she is the one actually making the decisions. Historians believe that her role was far more than administrative. She was, in many ways, the silent architect of the Brooklyn Bridge. Imagine her walking from 326 Hicks Street down to the construction site. She wears the heavy, layered silk dresses of the period, her hair pinned neatly under a hat. She steps over the muddy ruts of the Brooklyn streets, passing the bakeries smelling of fresh rye, the blacksmith shops ringing with the sound of hammers. When she arrives at the bridge, the workers stop and tip their caps. They have come to respect this woman who speaks of wire wrap and tower anchorage with the confidence of a veteran. She listens to their concerns, inspects the quality of the steel, and returns to Washington to provide a vivid, detailed account of the day's work. Back at the house, the atmosphere is one of intense focus. The room is filled with blueprints, large sheets of paper covered in Washington's cramped handwriting and Emily's elegant script. The air smells of ink and old paper. Can you hear the scratching of the pen as Emily calculates the tension required for the next section of the cable? Can you see Washington, propped up against his pillows, his eyes bright with a feverish intelligence as he guides her through a complex problem of physics? They are a team, bound together by a single, unwavering goal. This period is not without its trials. There are moments of deep exhaustion. There are nights when the pain in Washington's limbs is so great that he cannot sleep. Emily sits by him, reading aloud to distract him from the fire in his nerves. There are days when the politics of New York threaten to strip them of their positions. Critics claim that Washington is mentally unfit, that he is a ghost who no longer exists. But Emily stands as his shield. She hosts the trustees, she writes the reports, and she ensures that the work never falters. The bridge grows. The two great Gothic towers, with their majestic double arches, now dominate the skyline. They look like giant cathedrals rising from the water, built from limestone and granite. The people of Brooklyn and New York begin to look up at them with a sense of awe. These towers represent a bridge to the future, a promise that the two cities will one day be one. But for Emily and Washington, the towers are also a reminder of the cost. They remember the men who died in the caissons. They remember John Roebling, whose foot was crushed by a ferry, leading to the tetanus that took his life. The bridge is being built with more than just stone and steel, it is being built with the very lives of those who dreamed it. As the 1870s draw to a close, the most difficult part of the construction begins, the spinning of the cables. This is a delicate, dangerous process. 14,000 miles of steel wire must be hauled across the river, strand by strand, and bundled into 4 massive supports. The wires are made of a new kind of steel, stronger than any used before. Each wire is only about as thick as a pencil. When woven together, they will have the strength to hold up the heaviest bridge in the world. Imagine the sound of the wire as it is pulled across the span. It makes a high, singing noise, a metallic hum that vibrates in the air. Emily watches this process with a keen eye. She knows that if the tension is off by even a fraction of an inch, the entire structure could be compromised. She monitors the traveling wheels that carry the wire back and forth across the river, ensuring that the work continues at a steady, safe pace. She is the one who ensures that the 1,595 5-foot span remains perfectly balanced, a masterwork of mathematical precision. During these long years, Emily's life is entirely consumed by the bridge. She has little time for the social life expected of a woman of her status. Her world is defined by the catenary curve and the health of her husband. Yet, even in the midst of this grueling labor, she continues to grow as an individual. She is not just a surrogate for Washington, she is becoming a scholar in her own right. This thirst for knowledge will eventually lead her, years after the bridge is finished, to graduate from New York University in 1899 with a law degree, a testament to the formidable mind that was forged in the fires of the Brooklyn Bridge project. But for now, the law is far in the future. The present is defined by the slow, steady progress of the cables. The bridge is no longer just a skeleton, it is beginning to take on its final, iconic form. The diagonal stay cables, which radiate from the towers like the silk of a spider's web, are added to provide extra stability. They give the bridge its unique, shimmering appearance, a blend of weight and grace. Through it all, Washington remains at the window at 326 Hicks Street. He is the man on the hill, the invisible commander. His collapse in 1872 could have been the end of the story, but because of Emily, it became a transformation. The bridge is no longer just his father's dream or his own career, it is a shared monument to their marriage and their mutual resilience. As we reach the early 1880s, the end is finally in sight. The cost has been high, $5 million and more than a decade of their lives, but the result is something the world has never seen. The Brooklyn Bridge is a miracle of the 19th century, a structure that seems to defy gravity and the elements. But there is one final hurdle. Before the bridge can officially open, there must be a crossing. A moment to prove to the world that the structure is safe, that the Roeblings have succeeded. That the silent architect has done her job. Emily Roebling, The woman who had carried the secrets of the bridge in her heart for 11 years, is chosen to be the first person to cross the completed span in a carriage. Picture her on that day. She is not just a wife or a messenger anymore. She is a conqueror. As she prepares for that first crossing, she carries a specific item with her, a symbol of victory. It is a white rooster, a traditional sign of good luck and triumph. As the carriage wheels begin to turn, clicking against the new wooden planks of the roadway, Emily sits tall. The rooster in her lap is a flash of bright white against the gray stone of the towers. She looks out over the water, seeing the docks where her journey began. Then she looks up at the massive cables she helped to spin. The carriage moves slowly, deliberately. The wind from the harbor tugs at Emily's veil, and the sound of the river is a distant murmur below. As she passes under the great stone arches, she is moving between two worlds, from the old world of horse-drawn ferries. Isolation to a new world of connection and speed. She is the bridge between the dream and the reality. When she reaches the other side, the cheers of the small crowd of workers and officials are like a wave of relief. She has done it. Washington, watching through his telescope from the window on Hicks Street, sees the carriage emerge from the shadows of the Manhattan Tower. He sees the white rooster. He knows that his life's work is complete. The official opening will take place on May 24, 1883, a day of massive celebration, fireworks, and parades. But for Emily and Washington, the true victory happened in the quiet moments between 1872 and the finish line. It happened in the darkened room where math was mastered. In the mud of the caisson where a husband's health was sacrificed for a father's vision. As we end this chapter, the bridge stands tall, its cables singing in the wind. The bends had tried to break the chief engineer, but they had only succeeded in forging a more powerful partnership. Emily Roebling has emerged from the shadows, proving that the strength of the bridge was not just in its 14,000 miles of wire. In the unwavering resolve of a woman who refused to let a dream collapse. But the story of the Brooklyn Bridge is not just a story of triumph. It is a story of transition. As the lights of 1883 begin to flicker in the distance, we must wonder, what happens when the bridge is finally opened to the world? What happens when the two cities become one? And what will become of the woman who sacrificed everything to build a path she was never supposed to walk? The night is deepening now over Brooklyn. The gas lights on Hicks Street are being lit, casting long, amber shadows across the cobblestones. The river continues to flow, tireless and cold, beneath the great stone towers. Washington Roebling is resting, his telescope put away for the night. Emily sits by the window, looking out at the silhouette of the bridge. It is a beautiful, haunting sight, a web of steel against the stars. Rest now, and let the image of the bridge drift into your dreams. Feel the stability of the stone, the tension of the cables, and the quiet peace of a job well done. The bridge is there, strong and silent, waiting for the morning. And as you sleep, remember that even the most impossible gaps can be bridged with patience, love, and a mind that refuses to be quieted. The story will continue, but for tonight, the bridge is finished, the rooster has crossed, and the silent architect can finally find her rest. Close your eyes. Listen to the soft hum of the cables in the night breeze. 1,595, 5 feet of steel and stone, standing guard over the harbor. 11 years of struggle, now frozen in time. The water flows. The city sleeps. The bridge remains. Tomorrow, we will walk across its spans into the light of the grand opening, but for now, let the darkness be gentle. Let the silence be your companion, just as it was for Emily during her long years of waiting. The towers are firm. The foundation is deep. All is well. All is still. Sleep now, and dream of the great arches reaching for the moon. As we prepare for the celebration that awaits in Chapter 4.